Hey, my name is Astronauty and today I have a very scary movie for everyone. So I've wanted to delve into the type of movie genre called like extreme cinema for a while now, and I've also had an eye on this specific movie for a while now. About 8 years. I'm pretty sure I discovered that this movie was a thing back in 2016. It is called Where the Dead Go to Die. And today I wanted to come on here and talk about it and give my thoughts on it because it's an extremely unique movie. I've never seen anything like it before, and maybe I'll never see anything like it again, so I just have to talk about it like now. So Where the Dead Go to Die is a 2012 anthology horror, and I think psychological. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this was tagged as psychological. And this movie was made almost entirely by a man named Jimmy Screamer Claus. Yes, Jimmy Screamer Claus. Screamer Claus, he came from the Screamer Claus family, okay? I know a couple of people that have the last name Screamer Claus. Is actually pretty common. And the reason why I've been intrigued about this movie for almost 8 years now is because people were touting it as like the most disturbing animated movie ever made. And to be honest, I'm gonna be honest, it didn't disappoint. Like, this movie did disturb me. It was pretty distressing to me. I saw this movie twice. Once just for the hell of it, and the second time I watched it because after the first viewing I was like, I should review this on my YouTube channel. I haven't uploaded on YouTube in a while too, so I should probably do that. And for some reason, the second time I watched it, I was a lot more disturbed by it the second time. I don't know why. I think it's because the first time I just was accepting all the bombardment of what the fuck is going on and all this imagery and shit. I was just accepting it. I just kind of like turned my brain off and like accepted it. But on the second time, like, I kind of knew what was gonna happen. I don't know what that phenomena is, but I mean, it doesn't make sense. There are certain themes and subjects in this movie that were especially disturbing and distressing to me, like with the kids. Yeah, this movie has children in it, and they do some stuff with the children. If you don't like kid maltreatment, this is my trigger warning to you. There's a lot of imagery in this movie that is very disturbing as well, and mainly because of the art and animation, this movie is very uncanny valley feeling. On the surface, the animation and the character models are something to criticize. Let's be honest, it looks bad. The character models jitter about. Sometimes they are floating, and sometimes when they are holding something, they're not actually holding something. But I mean, for this movie that is like very strange and underground, I think it suits, honestly. It also seems like Mr. Screamer Claus, who was responsible for the animation and art, he knew that he had his limitations, so he took a number of artistic liberties in order for his movie to stand out. Although I do admit that the art and animation do suit this movie, I will also admit that it kind of sucks me out of the immersion, and it kind of makes me think of how amateurish it is. And also, this movie would have been a lot scarier if it was better. I mean, I do understand why it looks amateurish. I mean, like I said before, Mr. Screamer Claus animated this primarily all by himself, and he also had very little experience, and he also did the mocap with an Xbox Kinect. That is just... that is wonderful. I love that shit. That's what I love to see. Although there are still aspects in this movie that are generally terrifying despite the shortcomings, like this man in the cloak, like his facial expressions, they're pretty scary. And also this man's smile is very scary, and sometimes the walking is terrifying. Look, the environments and backgrounds are ugly, but again, it suits this movie. I like that the environment is ugly. This movie is so strange, so grotesque, something that is not of this earth feeling that the environments need to be ugly. The cinematography in this movie is also pretty good. I mean, there are a bunch of like artistic shots in this movie that just add to it being interesting. When this movie tries to be scary, for the most part, it makes me feel uneasy. But there were also times where the scares felt very cheap, and it was mostly due to the loud noises and ear rape that was going on trying to jump scare me. I never understood that, like, that it's more annoying than anything. I'd also classify this movie as being pretty confusing, mainly because of the hallucination sequences, which ended up being the bane of my existence for the fucking hour, 35 minutes and 7 seconds of this movie. Look, I do appreciate the visual and artistic shit that goes on in this movie. It is one of the things that I like about this movie. But in conjunction, I also like to know what's going on when I watch something. And these hallucination sequences, they are in so much of this movie. So much of this movie is this. No! Personally, I like to watch movies for the story, okay? Not necessarily to be bombarded with sensory overload. And these hallucination sequences, they actually took time away from developing the story, and these stories are kind of intriguing. Like, they just came in just to ruin my immersion sometimes. Like, I would actually be immersed in the story. Like, genuinely, I'd be immersed in the story, and then I'm not going to slap myself, but it did feel like a slap when the hallucination sequences came in. When they went away, I would feel relieved, but then I would have to brace myself because I know that another one is coming, and it just seems like they never end. They don't end. They only end after an hour, 35 minutes and 7 seconds. It just seemed like Mr. Screamer Claus put his PCP-induced nightmares into the movie. I don't know, just share them with the world. He wanted to share. He said sharing is caring, and decided to put these fucking demonic apparitions onto the screen. I'd say a good hallucination sequence would develop the story and the characters. I know this because in this movie, that actually happens. Like, I was shocked. But here's the thing, that only happens twice in this movie out of how many hallucination sequences? I don't know how many they are. It's too fucking many. Well, only twice. They only serve to further the story and characters, and only one of them I actually liked. And some of them would last for a rather short amount of time, and some of them would last for a very long time. I mean, a very, very, very long time. Oh my goodness gracious me. The very long time. Wow, what the fuck? There are also these strange ass characters that confused me as well. Like this well man with the black cloak that makes crazy faces, and he's only seen by the well. And these insane looking black people with an IRL singular eye, which I think is Jimmy's eye. I don't really know the purpose of these characters or why they're there. I think that the black people were hallucinations. I mean, actually, I'm sure that they are now that I'm thinking about it. But I don't know about the man in the cloak, and honestly, I don't give a fuck. Okay, so now I'm gonna talk about the general plot of this movie and what stood out to me in these plots. Okay, I'm gonna go through what I took away from it, like what I understood, okay? I will also try and keep this spoiler-free as I can, but I do really want to point out like some of the stuff that stood out to me in this, because I would love to, okay? So I'm sorry, I will try, okay? So Where the Dead Go to Die has 3 anthology stories. This one is Timmy's story named Tainted Milk, this bitch's story named Liquid Memories, and Ralph and Sophia's story named The Mask That Monsters Wear. First of all, I actually do love the idea of this being an anthology that has all the stories tie in together at the end. I'm always into those, and I also like how they also improve over time. I do think that these stories get better as they go along. Tainted Milk is first, and this is about Timmy and his parents hate each other, but the mother is still pregnant with his little brother. There's this LGBTQ dog named Labby who's voiced by Mr. Screamer Claus himself, and this is not a theory, okay? This dog is gay or bi, and I will tell you why. He basically coaxes Timmy, was it Tommy? Tommy into thinking that his mother's gonna give birth to the Antichrist, apparently. And it has something to do with tit milk, apparently. That's why this is called Tainted Milk after all. And apparently Tommy believes him because Blabby says that he's sent from God, and he just fucking believes him. And that is really the general gist of what Tainted Milk is about, at least what I understood of it. And there are a lot of scenes that I was confused on and should have really been taken out of this movie in general, like the hallucination sequences. And honestly, out of all the stories, I did feel like the hallucination sequences here, like there was no justifiable reasoning as to why they were there. At least for the next two, there are justifiable reasons and I'll get to them. But for this, Mr. Screamer Claus should have really taken them out. The only reasoning I can like kind of think that there are hallucinations in this is that Mr. Screamer Claus like wanted there to be. And possibly another reason is that, well, according to the synopsis, it says that Labby causes them, and I actually didn't read the synopsis until my second and last viewing of this movie. You'd think that I would actually read the synopsis before watching the movie in the first place, but that's not how I roll, okay? Apparently, that's not how I roll. I mean, I just thought that Labby was there just to cause chaos and fuck shit up and tell the characters to do heinous acts. The man with the crazy faces, it makes a prominent appearance in this, but I don't really understand what he's saying because he mostly touts nonsense. I only mention that guy because he's apparently an important character. Apparently he's important. The voice acting for Tommy is the fucking worst in this whole movie by far. To be honest, the voice acting here, it's not even that bad. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by some of the performances. Most of them, they were actually good. They just needed to get a new mic, that's what I'm saying. But for Tommy, it's evident that a grown man is doing it and he couldn't put on a worse voice. It's like the man was trying to put on an old lady voice, but I don't fucking know. It kind of sounds like Mickey Mouse as well. I actually have no idea if it was actually trying to be comedic.
Where do babies come from? What's a condom? Oh. Hi, Labby.
And I'm actually serious in me wondering as to whether or not his voice is meant to be funny, because originally this whole segment was meant to be a black comedy. And to be fair, there were actually some moments that were pretty funny in this.
Well, son, a condom is a little piece of rubber that comes in a package that prevents any and all pleasure derived from sexual intercourse.
Yeah, I must have been wearing a condom through our whole marriage.
I think that ultimately this isn't a black comedy though, because it stated that Mr. Screamer Claus initially wanted this to be a black comedy and then rewrote it several times because he didn't think that it really suited a black comedy. But this just has like small amounts of comedy in it that doesn't overshine the whole thing. I wouldn't call this a comedy, it just has like small comedic elements in it. And this was also originally meant to be its own standalone story. That's why the tone of this is slightly different. But then Mr. Screamer Claus knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to make more serious horror movies. So that's why the other two, that's why their tone is a lot more different. Okay, so the biggest takeaway for me is I never thought I'd ever see the day, but after Tommy kills his mommy and daddy, and after Labby rips the fetus out of the mother's vajayjay, he says that he wants Tommy to give him analysis. You get what I mean? On top of his own mother's naked corpse that has the baby ripped out of him. Yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot of graphic content just right there, just like in one area, just jumbled together, just graphic content. He wanted to squeeze as much graphic content inside of a scene. Just he put everything, bitch. You see why now I think that Labby is part of the LGBTQ community? Oh yeah, and he's also part of the P3er community too. Oh my god, I just realized that you can't spell pedo without EDP. I don't know if anyone else has ever mentioned that. I mean, I've never seen it. Maybe I'm the first person to realize that. Maybe I'm smart. Oh my god. That you can't spell pedo without EDP. You can't spell EDP without pedo. Wait, no, I'm not actually smart. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying now. What the fuck? Yes, the scene was very concerning and disturbing, at least conceptually, but that doesn't really bode well for the rest of the story now, does it? I want my biggest takeaway in a story to be creativity, or how it made me feel, or certain characters or developments in the story, not some shock factor scene. That just goes to show that this segment wasn't very memorable to me at all. The reason why I won't be talking about this segment for very long is because nothing I felt really happened in this. I mean, this was 17 minutes, but I felt like nothing really happened. Like, I didn't remember much except for that. And I said that conceptually this scene is disturbing, and what I mean by that is that it sounds more disturbing than it looks. And no, it's not because I like little kids or furry shit. It's because of the animation. I mean, the animation kind of made it look goofy. Trust me, if the animation was better, I'd probably feel sick right now, but I'm all good. So yeah, the animation was trash. I really didn't need to see Tommy's coon face though. I mean, no. Look, okay, I'm not done with this scene, but it's just one more thing, okay? It's just one more thing, okay? Don't click out the video. It's just one more thing, and it's not even that bad. It's more funny than anything, but I was just shocked that Labby's a bottom. I mean, he comes up as a very commanding and demanding figure, and he's this ethereal godlike being apparently, and he's a bottom to a child, no less. That honestly shocked me. That surprised me. But like, okay, I wasn't expecting a sex scene with him. I didn't want a sex scene with him. I wasn't picturing that shit, trust me. Wow, like, you really don't really know people until their most intimate moments come out and you truly see what someone's like, right? I don't fucking know. After we stop seeing how gullible Tommy is, believing a fucking puppy into even having sex with him, we go to our next segment, which is Liquid Memories, where we follow this model in a church who is a serial killing drug addict. Okay, I lied about the first part. He is not a fucking model, but you could have fooled me, bitch. Not because he's attractive at all. Actually, he's ugly as fuck and probably smells like shit. But I'm saying that because of the way he turns around and walks. Look, he doesn't even walk, he struts. Get this bitch on the fucking catwalk. Anyway, his drug of choice are these liquid memories that he takes out of dead bodies from their brains, and then he injects that shit into himself like heroin. That's why he's also a serial killer, because you need dead bodies in order to get these liquid memories, and he's freaking addicted to that shit, so he kinda really wants to kill people. This is actually a pretty good excuse for the hallucination sequences, because he ends up like reliving like very twisted, fragmented versions of these memories, and apparently he takes this drug in order to like forget about death or something, and apparently forgetting about death involves these black people he's hallucinating about all the time, they have tentacles and shit. Are they hallucinations? Because the tentacles end up carrying someone. So are they hallucinations or not? I don't fucking know these goddamn characters. Anyway, it doesn't even matter at the end of the day because we get a hilarious boxing match between the serial killer and the crazy black people. So that's a bit fun. And to be honest, on a serious note, I actually like this premise a lot. It's a very unique and interesting and dark idea that actually warrants the use of hallucinations. It's just that, and you know, I'll say this once and I'll say it again, the hallucination sequences take up so much time. Again, it feels like Mr. Screamer Claus was forfeiting the development of this pretty intriguing ass story that he has going on in favor for showcasing his latest trip to the world. There was one hallucination sequence that went on for 14 minutes. 14 straight minutes. It didn't end. 14 straight minutes of that. I even checked when it started and when it ended, and it was actually 14 minutes. That's almost the entirety of the first story. I kept on having to check the time to see how far into the movie we are because honestly I was getting fucking tired of this shit. I was getting bored. Oh my goodness gracious me, and guess what? I didn't skip any of that shit. Not to brag or anything, but I didn't skip any of this hallucination sequence. I did not, okay? Even though I was so fucking bored, I didn't skip any of it. Yeah, that's right. Bow down to your new queen. I didn't skip any of that shit. Oh my goodness gracious me, I fucking didn't. Okay, so besides the man in the church who only stays in the church and never goes anywhere else, he just stays there, we have this prostitute woman and also this man in stilts. He doesn't have any legs. He only walks in stilts because they're cut off, and he looks absolutely insane. And I have to question as to whether or not these stilts that he has that seems to be metal are actually like attached to his nervous system, because when the woman and this man go on their date, you know, he requests that she strokes him off, but like not his ding dong. Thank Talos, okay? Thank Talos that it's not actually his ding dong. It is the stills and the faces he makes, the faces he fucking makes, and the sounds too. It's definitely the most disturbing part of this segment. Yeah, I think I actually did look away because it was just too much for me. And it's not even his dick, it's his still. It's like he can feel that shit. Like there's a nervous system attached to that, or what? I'm just glad that Mr. Screamer Claus has his limits. Apparently this crazy looking man was a war veteran. At least that's what I gathered from the hallucination sequence. And you know, to be honest, I do understand as to why there is a hallucination sequence for him, because it is also doubled as like a war flashback, like a traumatic flashback, and that is kind of needed for us to know why he ends up poking the woman's eye. It's kind of like a reflex, like he ends up thinking that she's the enemy because he like was getting really into the pole job. Is that what the enemy did to him? Pole job? But at the same time, did we really need that much time in order to establish his traumatic war story? Especially because he is a very minor character. But apparently it's important information for us to know that he fought against the Emoji Army. Very important, apparently, to the whole plot of this movie. The emojis never return. I'm sorry to spoil this shit for you, but the emojis never return. Anyway, this is a love story, kind of. And that is the biggest kind of that I have probably ever said in my life, because the woman ends up in the church because she needs help. And at first, I thought that she was just injured because all he did was poke her eye out, but apparently she's dying from like one eye missing. I mean, I know that would really hurt, and I really don't want that to happen to me. Like anything that has to do with eyes, it's painful for me. It's a struggle. Like even doing my eye makeup is fucking stressful for me because I'm terrified that I'm gonna poking myself in the eye. I know that she has a lot of blood gushing out, but that wouldn't kill you. That wouldn't kill you. Like, you're fine. You are fine. Okay, so the psycho man ends up falling in love with the woman because she's dying in front of him. That is the reason why. It's a pretty reasonable reason, if you ask me. I mean, think about it. On a more serious note though, this scene actually depressed me, and it was actually my highlight of the story. She keeps asking for help, but he never helps. She doesn't even question why he's not helping her. She just accepts it. She even says, you know, if you're not going to help me, at least talk to me, because I just want to hear a voice before I die. I don't want to be too lonely. He doesn't even do that, dick. I mean, at least at first he doesn't. He eventually does talk to her, but he asks her, like, what's it like to die? At least that's something, you fucking emo bastard. He accepts the request to embrace her, and then he eventually gives her a mercy killing, and also because he just wants fucking drugs, so he killed her. I mean, that's true love. That's fucking true love, yeah? And he falls in love with her as she's dying in his arms.
Wait, what the fuck? What you watching, bro?
And then we get to the final story, which is the mask that monsters wear. I actually liked the story the best. I liked the concept and I liked the execution the best. It also has the most cohesive story structure to it. It's also the longest and the saddest. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if Mr. Screamer Claus just ditched the other two and just made this one longer. But like without the hallucination sequences, please, at least not too much, please, and don't make them too long, please. When I think of where the dead goes to die, this is the first segment that I think of. This is the first segment that pops in my head. It is about a little boy named Ralph who has a Siamese twin that is attached to the side of his head, and he is in love with a sweetie named Sophia, who is honestly synthed like a robot, and she talks in slow motion.
But now they're stuck forever, which is kind of like being dead, only slower and sadder.
But unfortunately, they come from very troubled households, and I mean very troubled. I mean, Ralph's parents fucking blame him for killing his twin brother in the womb because they're fucking stupid. And to add to their stupidity, even though Ralph looks like he's like 8 to like 10 years old, around that age range, they treat him like he did that shit yesterday. Like, they will not let that shit go. This is new news to them. At least they're acting like it. They are throwing tantrums and beating him up and shit. Like, this is day one. This is day one of him killing his brother. No, that shit was fucking in the womb. He's almost a teenager now. You gotta let that shit go. They even tell Ralph to always shave his head because they don't want his hair to be covering the twin on the side of his head. But like, he's walking around in a balaclava. Like, you don't think that is covering the twin brother's head? Why can he walk around like he's about to rob some bitches, but he can't have hair? They never say, they don't seem to care. So they clearly like the Siamese twin more than Ralph, despite it never talking, never really having a conscience. Bitch, they never even gave him a name. They just call him your brother. But they gave Ralph a name, so you tell me, why the fuck do these parents like this fucking behelit on the side of his fucking face more than the child himself? These are the most petty parents I have ever seen. From the examples I have given, you can't fucking think that these parents aren't petty. The mother doesn't even sound the age she looks like. She looks like a fucking senior citizen, but she has a young ass, fucking early 20s ass voice looking ass.
Who are you to judge? God has a divine plan for all of us.
Anyway, Sophia's parents are also complete dog shit, especially her father. I just feel like really sick to my stomach just thinking about this fucking giant bobblehead of a man. So basically, her father is responsible for recording and profiting off her doing certain acts with older men inside a dingy ass fucking basement room. That's all I need to say. Okay, you guys can pick up the pieces. You know what the fuck I'm talking about. You all are sick too with dirty minds as well. Don't worry. Me too. He also regularly beats her up for crying during these tapes because he's a full-on fucking retard and doesn't understand why she's fucking crying. And while I'm on the subject, the child abuse scenes in this, they are very harrowing to watch. I don't know, child abuse just really affects me, okay? He also whacks off to her. It's just the most disgusting shit ever. Even though the art and animation isn't very good, you know, the facial expressions, they are still very disturbing. Luckily, we don't get to see any penises who he's beating off while he's wearing his overalls. Yeah, that fucking makes sense, but you know, it's probably pointless, you know, for us to see nudity anyway, okay? He probably has a micro penis. Luckily, thankfully, unlike the first segment and like the second segment, we don't see any sex. That is good. Look, I have my fucking limits. The subject of distributing and recording child pornography and incest and fucking child abuse, like, that's already enough for me. I have my fucking limits. Mr. Screaming Claus, he has his limits too. Sophia's mother also pisses me off because all we see of her is just her sitting there, like, she doesn't even say anything. She just watches the abuse happen and she just sits there. It makes me want to materialize through the screen and fucking give her another fucking black eye. I guess this story also warrants the use of hallucinations because of Ralph's condition. His Siamese twin's brain is like fused with him, and even though he's pretty much unconscious for most of the day, apparently he wakes up for only a few minutes per day, which causes these clashes in Ralph's brain, and it causes like these freaky hallucinations. That's how they justify it. There is only one hallucination sequence here though that I liked, and it's the only hallucination sequence in the entire movie that I actually liked. You know, it actually advanced the story and the characters, and it gave a clear motive. It also didn't last very long. This is what I would have liked to see from pretty much all the hallucination sequences, you know, not just some trippy shock factor shit, some sensory overload shit that just seems tacked into the movie without any rhyme or reason, it seems like. And this would also give me a better incentive to appreciate the creativity that goes into them. The rest are par for the course, really, you know. I said the same shit over and over again before. They halt the progression of the story, you know. I was just waiting for Mr. Screamer Claus to get back to the motherfucking story already. And to be honest, it's truly a shame that the hallucination sequences would just butt into the story a lot of the time, because this was en route to being a pretty solid and well put together love story between two innocent kids, you know, that was both heartwarming and adorable, but also tragic and depressing at the same time. I don't know, there's just something about little kids falling in love that is just heartwarming to me. And no, not that fucking puppy love bullshit that honestly I was doing at their age. I feel like the only happy scenes were in this segment, which is also one of the reasons as to why I like this segment more than the others. Sometimes even in very depressing stories, happy scenes are needed, and I feel like it's what makes these types of stories better. Seeing the characters happy is just a nice break from all the sadness, and it can even make the sad moments even sadder and leave a bigger impact with these happy moments, because even if the happy moments are honestly brief, like in this movie, it can help us connect with the characters more and understand them more. I don't know, I'm also just like a sucker for cute romances. I really found it adorable when Sophia complimented Ralph's drawing and Ralph said that all he wants to do now is draw because of her. And now that I'm getting to this part, this is actually like really embarrassing for me to say, like on camera. I know that a lot of people are probably gonna call me a pussy for this. I couldn't help but like cry waterfalls when Ralph and Sophia went on their little date. In the 2 times that I watched it, the effect on me was the same. I was fucking crying my eyes out. Okay, call me a fucking bitch. Okay, I know this is embarrassing. And when Ralph takes off his mask because he trusts that Sophia won't judge him, and then when Sophia said that this was the best day of her life even though they just did stuff that was really simple. I don't know, guys, you have to understand, like, I was getting bombarded with scene after scene of these kids getting horribly abused in horrific ways. Seeing them finally relaxing, it got me fucking teary, you know, even if, you know, it was brief before they went home and then, yeah, hell started to happen again, but it was nice while it lasted. In fact, from that scene forward, I just couldn't stop crying. Like, the tears couldn't stop fucking flowing, bitch. And sometimes I didn't even know why I was crying. I just was. But I also understood sometimes as to why I was crying. So another part of this story, besides Ralph trying to get with Sophia, is him getting tempted by evil outside forces in order to do horrible shit to Sophia. And these forces are, of course, the evil adults and Labby, who appears in this shit too, like all the other shit. And I think his hallucinations, I fucking think. And because of these evil forces basically telling him lies, Ralph ends up doing something really horrible to Sophia that he thinks is gonna make her feel better, but in fact is probably the biggest betrayal he could have ever done. And I'm not going to spoil what he does because I just don't think it's necessary for this review to spoil what he did. I know that I already like spoiled a lot of stuff, but I just don't think it's necessary here to say. But, you know, I guess that you can kind of like, from what I have said previously, you can kind of get a clue of what he does roughly. And I couldn't stop crying because of how horrifically uncomfortable it was. Like, Mr. Screamclaws really went out of his way to make this shit as uncomfortable as possible. And you know, this was also almost right after the cute date that they went on, so that just makes everything fucking worse. And I also cried hard when Sophia confronts Ralph, you know, by the demon well, but you know, we'll just ignore that. She's really angry and upset at Ralph and she feels so betrayed and she doesn't feel like she knows who Ralph is anymore, but she says that he will always have a special place in her heart because he gave her the best day of her life. Oh, that is just so sweet. I don't care about what anyone says. Oh, Victoria, you found a moment in Where the Dead Go to Die very sweet. Yes, bitch. Yes. Those were the scenes in the segment that really stuck out to me. But I have to mention the very final part of this movie because I am left to question, you know, a number of things. So it is revealed that we have actually seen the adult counterparts to the child characters. Tommy was the main character in the second story. He was the crazy serial killer drug addict man. Sophia was the prostitute in the second story, and also that man who she goes on a date with in the second story, he was actually in the third story, and he was whacking off to Sophia with her father. He actually had legs in that segment, so you know, I'm fucking glad that your fucking legs were cut off, wanker. Like, you are literally a wanker, like literally, we fucking saw it. I guess that Sophia didn't recognize him, you know, when she was an adult, and Ralph ended up being the crazy spirit guy with the black cloak by the fucking well. Look, I don't fucking care about this guy, okay? You know, whenever he comes up, I would just want to skip the scene. This guy is nothing to me. I've only mentioned him in this fucking review because the movie thinks that he's an important character. Okay, fuck this guy. I'm honestly like left to question how this is possible because it is established that Ralph, Sophia, and Tommy, they're all the same age, okay? They were even in the same class. But like, we saw the crazy clerk man, Ralph, talk to Tommy in his segment. This is even more confusing because at the end of the last fucking story, we saw Ralph speak to the crazy clerk man, which is actually himself. Call me a tree because I am fucking stumped. Well, I guess the synopsis, according to the synopsis, it says there might be time travel involved, or at least that's what I gathered from the synopsis. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Screamer Claus was on drugs throughout the entire making of this movie. Psych! I already fucking know that he was on drugs. So I was making these offhand remarks about the creator being on drugs, you know, ha 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 ha, he must be on drugs, haha. Well, no, those weren't actually jokes, you know, he was actually on drugs, but not PCP. Okay, I mentioned PCP. Actually, at first I thought it was PCP because it's like, oh, this has to be a PCP induced fucking trip, but no, surprisingly, it wasn't fucking PCP. He took marijuana, LSD, psilocybin. What the fuck is that? What is that word? Psilocybin mushrooms. And apparently he overdosed on melatonin, which made him dream about the fucking devil. What the fuck? What the fuck, Jimmy? Like, control yourself. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, okay, this movie was made in 2012. I hope that, you know, by now he will get his drug thing under control. So I guess, like, one of the aims of this movie was for Jimmy to project his latest drug trip and share that shit to the world through the form of an animated movie. That is really interesting, actually. Getting, you know, into the fucked up psyche of someone who is doing these hard drugs and seeing how it distorts and makes the mind go demented. You know, some trippiness here and there would have been great, but not every minute, and not when it butts in to stories, okay? Overall, if I had to say that I liked or disliked this movie, I would actually go for the former. Yeah. It is very unique, I have to give it that. And I appreciate the visuals too. It's very creative. And there are also premises and ideas in this that honestly good ideas, and if they were fleshed out more, you know, they could have been even better. But honestly, I don't think that I would be saying that I like this movie if it wasn't for the last story. The last story had the most memorable and impactful moments for me. And it's fucking obvious what the worst part about this movie is. Okay, I've said it a million fucking times.
Ah, tripping out, dude.
I do feel like I watched this movie one too many times. So if I wasn't making this YouTube video, I would not have gone back to this movie. I think 1 is enough. Overall, I'd give this movie a 5 out of 10. It's actually better than that fucking Barbie movie, like I'm serious. Honestly, I see nothing but potential for Mr. Screamer Claus here. I don't know if he has any more movies or projects. I honestly don't know, but I mean, I would be down for watching more if he has some more. If he has any other movies or is planning to make other movies, I just hope that this is the only movie that mixes drugs and movie making. But before I leave you all today, I just have one question that needs answering. One very important question. One question that has been lingering above my head even before watching this movie. And that is, where do the dead go to die? I'm not just saying that, that's a fucking question. Where do the dead go to die? The title is Where the Dead Go to Die. So I was expecting an answer. I was sitting there in fucking vain for an hour, 35 minutes and 7 seconds waiting for an answer. They didn't fucking answer me. Did Mr. Screamer Claus just name this movie Where the Dead Go to Die just because it sounds cool? Oh, wait, okay. I think I got it. Okay, after some thinking, I think I got it, alright? Do they die by that fucking well? Okay, because at the end, they are sitting by the well, you know, the children and their adult counterparts, they are sitting by the well. Do they die at that fucking well? The fucking well that I hate and I barely brought up in this review, because every time they went to that fucking well, some nonsensical shit happened. I don't fucking know what the fuck happens by that well, but apparently it's an important part of the story. I don't fucking know. Maybe they die by the well. I don't know how. Maybe they fall in or some fucking shit. That is gonna be the end of this video. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to let me know. Leave a comment, leave a like, maybe subscribe if you want to see more. I definitely plan on being more active here. So anyway, goodbye. Okay, bye.